In recent videos, particularly the ones I do on a Wednesday, I've referred to the benefits of owning a letting agency. Now, some people have asked, how do you actually go about starting a letting agency? This is something I've done successfully more than once, launching an agency, and I want to share with you the key benefits of owning an agency and if you're thinking of starting one for yourself. If you're watching for the first time, my name is Hussain, and on this channel I have 3 videos a week to ultimately help you get further faster in your property investing journey. Now, if you're looking to start a letting and a management agency, the first thing I would ask is, why is it you want to do that? And often there's 3 common reasons people tend to do that. The first is they're already a landlord, they manage their own property, they're thinking, how difficult can it be to manage a few other properties and earn some income? The second reason we tend to find people want to do this is they may be already in sales, so they're selling properties, so they have a sales agency, an estate agency, and they're thinking about bolting on lettings as an additional service. And then the third most common reason people tend to want to get into lettings as a business is because they see it exactly that, as a business that they're going to earn revenue and income from. Whichever the reason is, or it might be a different reason that you're thinking about doing this, what I'd say is really important to get this clear, because this will help you determine which is going to be the right route for you to be able to build it. With starting an agency, there's 2 routes that you can follow. The first is you set up your own business, it's an independent business, and you're not actually being governed or controlled by anybody specific, you make the decisions. The alternative way is to take on a franchise. Now, with a franchise, they give you the systems and the processes to follow. So you are, to some extent, you have to work within the constraints of what the requirements with that agency are. But of course, there's advantages and disadvantages of each. So if you're starting your own business, you can choose what it's going to look like, where it's going to be based, how it's going to work, what you want to call it. You're in control of all of those things and how you actually want to operate the business as well. With a franchise, there will be boundaries that you'll need to work within, but also the benefits is you've got the team, the bigger systems and processes that you can tap into. If you're starting independently, you probably need a few £1,000s depending on how you set it up, and we'll get into the details in a short while. But if you're looking to acquire a franchise, it can vary with anything from a few £1,000s going up to possibly £200,000 investment to be able to set up. Now, I believe, this is from my personal experience, I think the single most important skill to have, regardless of which route you're going to go down, is the ability to be able to bring on business, i.e. the sales and marketing skill of taking on new landlords, because that's what drives these businesses forward. The next thing to consider is what type of agency you're going to run. So for instance, is it going to be a general bread and butter type of agency where you're looking after houses and flats? Or are you going to do something a little bit more specialist? For example, HMOs, it might be HMOs for working people, or it could even be HMOs that specialize just in students. Or it may be short stays like an Airbnb model, or even social housing where the individual living in the property is not the one paying the rent, it's paid by the government. So whichever type of agency you decide that you want to follow, some of it's going to be determined by where it is that you're actually setting the agency up, and also the type of tenants that are typically in that area. So for example, if you're in the city centre, it might be you're going to focus on city centre apartments for young professionals. And it could be a specialism, or it could be something you do exclusively. Now, my preference has always been to set up niche agencies that specialize in a specific sector, because it means that you can focus on doing that thing really, really well, and that's what people get to know you for. And of course, it's a competitive market, so how do you stand out? And I believe by niching, it means that you can differentiate yourself from everybody else. So think about what experiences you're already bringing as well to the business. For instance, if you're already working in sales, you'll know the locality, you'll know the area. If you're a landlord, very similarly, you already know what type of properties are in the area, what type of tenants that you may want to work with. Whereas if you're starting brand new and you don't necessarily have the experience, then you have the choice to be able to choose what location you want to be in and what type of agency you want to set up. Another important aspect to consider is who else is in the marketplace and who is going to be your potential competitor. But just before we get into that, if you're enjoying this content, then make sure you smash that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well. Make sure you've got the notification bell enabled, because that means you get notified when we're delivering awesome content like this and you get to see it first. So let's talk about the competition. Who else operates in this marketplace? Now, again, depending on the type of agency you decide to set up, you need to see who else does a similar kind of thing. So if it's an everyday, what we call a bread and butter type of agency that manages houses and flats, which predominantly most agencies fall into that category, that's probably where the bulk of the competition is as well. But if you're setting up something a little bit niche, then you might find there's less competition. So for instance, when I first started in this business, we started managing HMOs, and the reason we chose that, because there was actually very, very few agents that would even take on those type of properties, never mind specializing and focusing on them exclusively. That meant we had very little competition when we got set up and got moving forward. So it's easier to build that particular business. Whereas, for instance, if you're going to have a student HMO agency and you set up near the university, chances are you're probably not going to be the only one doing that. When researching the competition, what we want to understand is what's their proposition? What is the offering that they've got for landlords, and what's the offering they've got for tenants? Because remember, they're the two key sectors that you'll be servicing. Now, this will also help you understand how to price your business, because you've got to get an idea of what everybody else is doing. You can't just go, that sounds like a good figure, let's go with that as our management fee. You have to get an idea of what's going on in the market, what the average fees are. Now, you don't have to copy those fees. You don't have to go in a little bit cheaper or a little bit more expensive. You can create the product that you want, but it has to have some kind of bearing with what's already in the marketplace and what people consider as the norm within the area. The next thing that we need to think about is the type of premises that you'll be operating from. So for instance, are you going to have a shop front? Are you going to work from there? Or are you going to be working from an office? Or alternatively, is it going to be an online only type of agency, which may be office based or may even be remote? And my preference has been office based, because I don't think there's really been a huge benefit by setting up a shop front, having it manned all the time, or woman, whatever you'd like to say. So somebody there having a presence all the time in terms of the shop front. So the offices have been a model that's worked really well for us. And I think with everything going on in 2020, going forward into 2021, I think we're going to see a change in how people operate. There's going to be less of a need for people wanting to walk into agencies. So if you think about the last time you were looking for a property, whether it's to buy or whether it's to rent, did you jump online and have a look there, or did you wander down the high street and stop at all the agents' windows and have a look at what they've got in the window? Yeah, it's completely shifting, the model is changing, and we need to make sure that what you're setting up is going to be the right type of model for your clientele. Also think about where you're going to meet your clientele. So for example, your tenants, your potential tenants, are they going to come into your office? So we do pretty much everything online in terms of digital signatures, but when it comes to meeting the tenants, we tend to meet them at the property that they come to view. So they don't really need to come into our office, and it's very rare for them to do that anyway. And then with your landlords, where are you going to meet them? Are they going to come into your office, your shop front, or are you going to meet them at their property when you go and have a look at what it is that they've got available? And generally for us, we go and meet them at the property. So when you think about it like that, the office is really for our staff to be working in, as opposed to outsiders coming into the office, which is not really how our particular business works. So think about how you want to set up and what might work well for you. The next thing then to think about is who is going to be part of your team, how you're going to run the business. There's various different roles to think about. So you've got your sales and marketing roles, which I call sales and marketing, although in lettings you're not really selling. Well, I say we're not selling, but really you're selling the idea of somebody letting a property from you. You're selling the idea of a landlord coming to you for you to manage their property. You're still selling, you're selling your services. So with sales and marketing, you're going to be looking for your landlords, you're going to be looking for your tenants. You've got operational activities, you've got accounts also to think about, you've got the maintenance team to think about. So there's various different roles. In fact, if you want to learn more about these, just let me know, ping me a message, and what we can do, we can maybe do a video specifically on all the different roles that you have within an agency that you're up when you get started and that you scale up. When I first started out doing this, initially it came from not finding somebody else who could manage our properties, our HMOs. So I was self-managing. So I got to probably about 60 units, about 60 rooms, and I was managing all of those. And believe me, at that point it became a real headache. At the beginning I was frustrated that I couldn't find somebody else to hand these to, and I thought, I can do this, I can do a better job myself, I'll do it myself. And then it got to a point where I became frustrated again because I've spent all my time trying to manage property. And you have to think about there's different roles to take into consideration. So the first thing I did is I got somebody else on to start doing some of the viewings, and then somebody else came on to do some of the accounting work, and then the team started to build up from that particular point. But ultimately, what we have to remember is there's different types of skills, or sometimes we call them soft skills and hard skills. Your soft skills are going to be more your customer facing ones. Your hard skills are going to be like, your accounting, your management. So it's remembering that when you build the ideas, you can scale these types of businesses. So you need to make sure you've got that in place, i.e. the right people, in order to be able to do that. The next thing to think about is the compliance side, the regulatory side of this particular business, and other tools that you might need to operate the business on a day-to-day basis. The reality is the barrier to entry is actually very, very low when it comes to setting up a letting agency. You don't really need any qualifications. There's a few things that you need to cover off, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, which means it's very easy to actually get started, which also means actually there's unfortunately a lot of poor practices that happen within this industry as well. So if you can make yourself stand above the crowd by having certain affiliations or certain accreditations, that's certainly going to help you standing out and being more attractive proposition compared to everybody else. So what are the things that need to have in place before you can start? Well, there's a few things. I'll try to remember these from memory. So you need to ensure that you've got professional indemnity insurance, or when you're giving advice that you're ensured that you're covered off in that way, just in case anyone tries to sue you, for instance. In terms of the business structure, whether it's a sole trader, a partnership, a limited company, there's no legal requirement. The general practice is people tend to operate in a limited company format. You also need to make sure you set up for one of the deposit registration schemes, depending on which one you want to work with. You need to register with the Ombuds scheme, and there's a couple of different ones you can go with. Is the PRS or the Ombudsman scheme itself. Whichever one you choose, you need to register with one of those as well. You may need to register for anti-money laundering, depending on the amount of money that you might be taking in terms of rent amounts as well. You'll need to have your terms of business in place in terms of how you work with people, and also various contracts that you'll need. So this is where it's important that you understand the law and you make sure you've got the right training in place, again, depending on your background, the skills and experience that you're building into this business, or team members you can bring into your business to help you. The legal side is really, really important. Unfortunately, the law is heavily sided in the favor of the tenants, in my opinion, which means that you really have to be on the ball when it comes to managing property, that you don't make any mistakes, so you don't have any disasters when it comes to looking after somebody else's property or issues with tenants that you might have. And of course, that means you also need to register with the Data Protection Act, which is the ICO. So you're compliant with data protection in terms of how you manage information. So these are a few things that you need to take into consideration when you're setting up from a compliance point of view. As I said, really, it's about understanding your legal requirements and your obligations as well. Before we touch on the very final one, what I wanted to share with you is, look, I've been spending time growing my businesses over the years. Lettings, I think, is a phenomenal business. Not only it's a great cash flow business, but one you can build up and exit as well, because they're capital values that you can build within a well-run letting agency. And I'm always looking to take on and acquire new businesses. So if you know anyone looking to sell a letting agency, particularly in the Birmingham area, I'm very interested. Reach out to me, let's have a chat. And of course, I'm always looking for fantastic people to join our business as team members as well. If you've got fantastic skills at selling, particularly when it comes to growing a lettings business and finding new landlords, then come and have a chat with me as well. Ping me a message and we can have a chat about that. So the very final thing I wanted to share with you is about having the right software tools in place to be able to run the business. Now, for me, I think this is absolutely fundamental. The building of the systems and the processes, particularly if you go and buy into a franchise, really that's what you're doing. You're getting their systems and processes, and I'm keen to build ones that work for us. That's the route I've taken. You need to decide which is the right one for you. There's many different software tools out there that can help you run and operate in a business. Some are on to do with the management of the tenancies, some about managing the properties and the maintenance side, and others are the accounting side as well. And if you want to learn more about those, send me a message and maybe we can do a video around that too. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next video.